Well, I think Guilford is a fantastic town. It has, great schools, great education system, great emergency services, great quality of life.
I love living in Guilford.
I'm in Guilford because I'm a lifelong resident of Guilford and had the opportunity to come back and work in our family business.
I've been in Guilford all my life, and I want to stay in Guilford. I don't plan on going to Florida.
We moved to Guilford 60 years ago as newlyweds. We rented, and then we bought a house, a small house, for $15,000. But that's no longer possible today.
My grandparents moved here in the 50s, and they bought a house on Little Meadow Road when that road was a dirt road. And I think it speaks to how much our community has changed and the needs of our community are changing.
Guilford actually used to be affordable for people who were starting out in their teaching career. There are entire neighborhoods that were developed by teachers and built by teachers. And having stayed in Connecticut for a very long time, in Guilford for a very long time, the property values have risen to a point where new teachers now cannot afford them.
My grandfather, my father, and I all raised our families here in Guilford. I'm not confident that my kids can do the same.
I just wish I could get out of the house and have a place that I could actually call my own,
Yeah, I mean, Megan's proven to be a great housemate, but, it's time that she left the nest. She wants to. My wife and I would love to see her close by, but her options for either a rental property or even a small house are extremely, extremely limited.
I'm a librarian at the Guilford Free Library, and it would really be nice to be able to live in the community that I serve. But right now I don't feel there's very many options for me, as a postgraduate student with a lot of student loans.
Homes in Guilford, most homes are extremely expensive, even small, fixer-up homes. It's really hard for a young family to be able to come into this community today and find a nice home that doesn't just need tons and tons of work.
And I also wonder whether I'm going to be able to retire in Guilford on a fixed income.
Not a week goes by without people calling in and saying, do you have a rental between $800 or $1,200? And we just don't have the inventory for it.
Affordable options are really key. And for rentals as well as for single-family homes.
Communities like Guilford, suburban communities like Guilford, need to pursue this.
I own a home in town. I have 3 kids in the schools, and recently went through a divorce. And I found, it's difficult to find affordable housing and in a 2-household situation, and to be able to stay and live in the community where you're trying to raise your children.
When a student family experiences a change in condition, we have students who lose a parent loses a job, family separates. In those situations, too often, the family can't afford to stay in Guilford, which means we end up telling the child that they can't finish their schooling in Guilford schools.
People get worried that affordable housing is a scary word, and it's not.
I've lived in Guilford for 24 years, which is essentially my whole life. And for the last 14 years, I've lived in Mutual Housing's affordable housing neighborhood on Apple Tree Lane. And at the time, my mother had just gone through a divorce. It was still my little brother and I. She worked 3 jobs, and she tried to do everything she could to make all ends meet. And without the affordable housing option, we wouldn't have been able to stay in Guilford.
Our neighbors' needs change according to the stages and challenges of their lives, whether that's young folks starting out on a career or with a new family, or folks who've raised a family in Guilford needing a single-level living in town near services. Preserving great variety of housing stock that folks can afford in Guilford preserves our town's character.
For me, it means that, I could actually afford to live in the town that I grew up loving,
It would allow us to have multi-generational families in the community, and I think that's a super important thing, especially for the younger generations, to have grandparents involved and be able to help the parents raise the kids.
My dream is to have affordable housing in all 4 areas of town where we have elementary schools, so that no matter what happens to families, there will be affordable housing and children can stay in our schools.
We have our entry-level firemen, entry-level policemen, teachers, our town hall workers can't live in town because we don't have affordable housing, and that's one thing I would like to see.
The time is right to address this need for so many of us here in Guilford.